Afternoon. Hope everyone's doing well. So I am back and let's update our website. You may have. All right, so we have a full stack nextjs app. We are connected to supabase. Uh, Back in, we have authentication set up. We basically have the backbone of everything that we need. Now we are relaxing, having a little fun, building out the UI, going over some things. I streamed my cybersecurity earlier today, so I don't want to mentally put myself through too much right now, but figured it wouldn't be a bad idea to hang out and maybe work on the UI just a smidge. So I am going to kick things off in just a second. Got a few things I want to talk about before we start coding. I um I had a couple questions about this in a prior stream, so I just want to talk about it a little bit. So look, I've been doing a lot lately, and I want to show you something that I've set up recently and kind of talk about why I took this approach. So I took a personal application called the Driftless, and I'll explain what that is later on in this video, and connect it to the outside world via vercel. Long story short, built the application, deployed it to the internet using vercel. But here's the twist. I did something a little different with this one than I normally do, because when I build alone or by myself, I typically just code, make updates, push it, and I'm done. But I was and in that process, you don't necessarily separate out environments. You don't need a clean release process. You don't think about staging and previewing in the production environment. Basically, you code, you push it, you make sure it works, you keep going. And honestly, that's typically how most of us, including you, build your projects. You don't keep up with branches, you don't keep separate commits, you don't roll things back, you don't test it out first. And it's okay, you don't necessarily have to. But that's where things like this entire process is really built upon. The reason I'm taking this approach is I had someone ask me about potentially collaborating with them and helping them out on something that they're working on. And I don't miss an opportunity to jump in on someone else's project for a few reasons. Number one, it's a good opportunity for both of us to learn from each other. You get code reviews, you get coding feedback, etc. So instead of kind of talking about theory and what should be done the right way, and most importantly, to give me some practice back into doing things in a structured manner, I decided to deploy this application referred to as Driftless to the World Wide Web. And in the process of deploying it, because I've deployed several applications over the years, I wanted to take a more structured approach with this where I am staging. I have a preview branch, I have a production branch, I have separate branches that I pull into staging, and then from staging, test it out, then go into production, making sure that I'm following some sort of flow. And this is what you can expect to do if you find yourself working for an employer. You may not use GitHub, you may use something else for version control, but you're going to use something that will allow you to collaborate with others, share code, work on code, roll things out, test things out before you move it to production. And that's basically the process that I followed with this particular application. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about it, the approach I took, why I took the approach, and why you should consider following a similar approach for your next application to kind of help build some structure, build a good foundation, and to get you prepared for whatever it is that you're looking to do next in your coding journey. Ooh, got some good old hot chocolate before we jump into some code. Need to wake up a little bit, a little tired. Been a good, productive, long day, but we we're gonna keep pushing because the hustle, the grind, if you will, never stops. All right, so now you know why I set things up the way I did, why I'm using the terminal, while I'm using GitHub, while I'm kind of doing things in a prehistoric fashion, if you will. Let's actually kind of look at how it works. And I found this documentation, and I knew it was here, but I referenced this documentation on vercel doc/GitHub, and I'll link it in the description for those that might be interested in checking it out. But basically, this documentation is going to talk through the process that I use for driftless. And I'm not just going to read the docs for the doc's sake. I'm actually going to talk through it, share the examples that I have in my project, and just kind of hopefully you'll learn something, pick up on some things that you'll start to implement in your next project that you desire to put out on the web, or maybe even just build for yourself. Have yourself a production environment, a development environment, and some form of feature update branches so that you can toggle between branches, test things out, make sure that things are looking and functioning the way you desire before you move it into a staging environment or into production. So looking at this page from vercel, this looks very simple, very cut and dry. And I know a lot of folks don't like reading the docs. I love it. I'm going to start doing more of it. It is the foundational way that you want to learn, because you may not always find a video on things, but you typically will always find some form of documentation that you can read. And then at that point, it's just your comfort level with reading and being able to apply and comprehend what it is that you just read. So at a high level, vercel is going to connect directly to your Git provider, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, whatever it may be. And the key idea is that your GitHub workflow, your Git workflow becomes your deployment workflow. So every push you make is going to trigger a deployment. You don't necessarily have to worry about redeploying every time. In fact, if I show you, before you look to move forward into the next steps or the next features or the next enhancement inside of your project. But as I mentioned, every push is going to trigger a deployment, and that alone is already a big mindset shift because, as I mentioned, instead of thinking, when do I deploy? Do I have everything set up? I'm automatically deploying along the way. And the cool thing about Vercel is that whenever a deployment fails, you get this little alert email and it lets you know that your deployment failed. You may notice sometimes while I'm on stream or while I may be working on a project, I may get an email and a ding, and you may hear that ding through the microphone here. That ding is basically indicating that, hey, you had a deployment attempt that took place. That deployment was unsuccessful. You can do something about it or not, but just know that what you currently committed to get is not configured properly, and it's not allowing those updates to take place on the World Wide Web. So let me slow down a little bit and just kind of talk through everything that we have going on. So basically what happened is when I connected my driftless repo to Vercel, at that point, Vercel created a automatic deployment, and I'll walk you through how to deploy the project via Vercel. Once you have your GitHub repo initialized, it is super simple. I would encourage all of you that have not shipped your first project to follow this documentation because it is very simple. It will help you get up quickly, and you will be amazed at how much you learn if you just took the time to ship immediately and push your changes to the World Wide Web immediately versus waiting until you have a complete project. Because a lot of times, most of you don't even finish your projects. You just stop midstream or stop mid code because something didn't work, start all the way over, and you never have a finished product. But this way, if you ship immediately, it should give you a mindset shift to say, hey, I already have something out there. Let me go ahead and make some updates so I can look at it on my phone. I can share it with friends and family. I can start getting some feedback on it. That's the thought process behind, and that's the personal thought process behind shipping immediately. Obviously, there are other benefits, but for me, I care a lot about your mindset, your thought process, and the way you go about things. This will help you get over that hurdle immediately if you go ahead and ship your project that you've uploaded to Git immediately before you connect the database, before you add your styling, before you do any of that cool stuff. Go ahead and get it on the web. So what this documentation is starting out talking about is that Vercel is going to allow you to automatically deploy every branch, push, and merges onto your production branch of your GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, or Azure DevOps pipeline projects, whatever you're using to kind of help with that version control. With Git, you have the ability to do a preview your deployment on every push, and you also have the ability to take that preview and merge it into your actual production branch, which is what you'll be sharing with everyone that is wanting to access your website. So the process to deploy on GitHub, or the process of deploying a Git repo, is extremely simple. You start by setting up a Vercel account and a GitHub account. Both of those are totally free. And then once you're logged in, you should notice a page very similar to this. web, you're removing one layer of excuses that a lot of us come up with as to why we don't ship things and we only build as a hobby and build for fun, but we don't actually put anything out on the web. We don't test things out. We don't do the things that will complete that cycle and give us that official title or badge of a full stack engineer. So that basically walks you through how to deploy out to the web via GitHub using Vercel. This just kind of talks about making sure, this talks about everything that I've already kind of went over. And then once you've uploaded everything, you've brought in your GitHub repo, you've pointed it to the right directory, added environment variables if you have them. This is basically what you will expect next. It'll redirect you to the dashboard. And then from there, you can kind of dissect what's taking place, look at the logs, make sure there are no errors, make sure things are flowing properly, look at the site, test the responsiveness, send it to your phone, make sure it looks how you prefer, etc. Now, if you're deploying a private GitHub repo as an additional security measure, commits to a private Git repo or forks that are targeting those Git repos will only be deployed if the commit author also has access to the respective project on Vercel. Depending on whether the owner or of the connected Vercel project is a hobby or a pro team, the behavior changes as mentioned in the section below. This only applies to commit authors on GitHub organizations, GitLab groups, and non-personal Bitbucket workspaces. It doesn't apply to collaborators on personal Git accounts. So basically what this is saying is that if you have a standard free tier account, you don't have to worry about differentiating or doing anything additional. If you have a private or public repo, it's going to all pretty much work the same. But if you have a private repo, there's an additional step that you would need to take, and it'll kind of talk you. It's very simple. It'll walk you through what needs to be done, and you'll be able to keep your repo private, but still keep your application out on the web. So the rest of this article basically talks about some of the features of using Git with Vercel. And as I've talked about earlier on in the video, one of the big benefits that I enjoy of using it outside of its ease of use is being able to differentiate between a production branch, a preview branch, a staging branch, or any other branches that I have. So with Git, when you create a new project from a Git repo, the production branch will be selected in the following order. Typically, you always want to make this your main branch. That's typically what I do. In the past, it used to be master, but I think people have kind of moved away from that word, and now it is titled main. But I always like to keep that main branch as the production branch where my final code goes into, where the URL is being shared with the end user. And this is what I want them to utilize and to see as they access my website. You have the ability to customize this. If you want to change it, you'll just customize it on the environments page inside of the project settings as the documentation suggests. But I would just suggest to you to keep it as main, but feel free to do whatever you want as long as you keep up with it, as long as it works, and as long as you understand the workflow. That's all that matters. So you can also have preview branches that can be deployed as well. And as you saw, I had different preview branches within my current project that I'm working on. The main preview branch that I have is named staging, which is the final application before I move it to deployment. Typically, everything that's within staging is going to be within the production stage or branch as well. But there are times that it may be different, or I may have a different color or feature within one branch and not the other. But usually those branches mirror each other. And the reason that I have those two separated out is because in the event I don't like something, or I want to move something back, or I want to test it out with the rest of the application, that's what that staging environment is for. And from there, I can pull it from staging into my main branch where my production application lives. The other thing with it is that you have the ability to have multiple preview phases. The documentation kind of talks about that, and different phases that you can have within the application, that all you need to do is just go in and set up and configure. But GitHub or Git does a lot of that for you. So all you have to focus on is the actual building of the application, keeping things organized and structured, and you have the ability to give yourself a production or a work team workflow, if you will, or a team environment workflow, I should say. You give yourself the ability to have a team environment workflow. In the event you want to bring someone else in, you now have a little bit more structure, or at least a foundation to kind of build some collaborative work. That way they can work on one feature while you're working on something else. So now let's kind of talk through the actual project itself. Yo, 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 what's going on, my friend? My apologies, man. How's it going, brother? I appreciate the heads up. Let me get this down a little bit. Let me see. Is it good here? It should be good here. Is it good here? It should be good here. And I think we are good here. So basically, just walking through what to expect on the vercel dashboard whenever you make a commit. The cool thing about it is that it keeps a log of all of your commits, and you have the ability to deploy from any branch that you create. So when I initially set this project up, of course, the first deployment took place on the main branch. But from there, I created two additional branches, one being features, supabase off, the next one being staging. And I like the fact that it actually keeps track of the error so that you can see. Hey, man, I found that out the hard way, man. Hey, it's funny you said that. I'm not a big Supabase user. Maybe only my second or third time using Supabase at the most. I'm mainly a Prisma, Postgres, Vercel, MongoDB, Mongoose kind of guy. But I used it, and when I brought it in, I got this error message deploying, and I actually tried it twice, not realizing that that was the reason that it was causing me error. I'm like, man, the docs say to still use this. Let me dig into this a little further. And I found out that you no longer need to use this package in order to get it working. So once I updated it and used the appropriate package, I was able to get the deployment going for those two branches without an issue. The feature off pages branch, and then I moved it from this branch into the staging branch, and then from staging into the main branch. So the point of me making this portion of this video is to make the suggestion to all of you out there to use a workflow for your application. It will make your life so much easier, and you'll find yourself eliminating the excuses of not deploying and when do I deploy and when do I do all of these things. If you go ahead and get it out there to the World Wide Web immediately, that eliminates a big hurdle that a lot of us face. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's exactly the reason it gave that error message. For those that do utilize Supabase or want to have a good understanding of it, basically the old auth helpers you don't need with the way it is set up now. The documentation, I think I might have had some dated docs that I was reading, but I ended up finding the appropriate approach and was able to successfully get it going. So with this application that I have here, the focus without drifting. It does use Supabase authentication. As a matter of fact, it might already be. Let me see something. If we go to login, yeah, we're already logged in as the JA dad. But if I log out, we have the ability to log in. I've already created an account before, so it just automatically redirects me. But if you were a first time sign up user, it'll send you the email to confirm your email address. And then once you confirm your email address, it'll redirect you to this dashboard page. And the step after this one is where we're going to build out the dashboard UI, basically giving us the ability to create our own study timer, and we'll be able to keep track of the amount of time, days, hours that we actually study. But yeah, man, no, good call out. I could tell you must be a Supabase user, because that is exactly the issue that I ran into while building and deploying this. I was using some dated imports that wouldn't work with the app, but we were able to get that working. So look, I would encourage anyone that does not currently have a workflow, to make sure that you flow with your apps, go ahead and get them on the web immediately. Start using and doing the proper commits so you can roll things back. Have a production and development branch so that you aren't just writing all of your code straight into production. You have some form of a staging and a testing environment before you move it into production. I'm not going to suggest that you overcomplicate things, but I do suggest that you bring some structure to what it is that you're doing. That way you're kind of building the right habits, and equally important, you're eliminating some of the excuses and the hurdles that we run into whenever we want to deploy an application out to the web. So I think I'm going to close some of this out. We don't need it. We don't need it. This is this is a this is a testing site, and I'm sorry, that was a production. This one is the testing where we can make live updates. And this one is the actual deployment dashboard where we can see all prior deployments. And this one is our local host where we are building out what the UI will look like. So I decided to spend a little bit of time and work on the actual UI next. Typically, I like to focus on all of my functionality first, but I had a request to add some UI to this versus it being so bland, if you will. So the cool thing about using GitHub and making sure you have a workflow is that if I wanted to, all I need to do is type a few lines of code and I can roll this back to what it was prior to me adding these changes without me having to delete any files, make any additional changes or anything like that. And if I want to go back to this staging environment, I could. And I can also pull this into whatever other branch that I like to do so, all by using some form of version control and bringing some organization and structure to my project. So I think what I'll do now is let's go ahead and build out this UI a little bit. What do we have going on? So we are currently on the feature UI branding branch. And I think what I'm going to do is roll this back to a prior branch. Let's go git stash push dash u dash m Congress UI build rollback. All right, and as you can see, Awesome, my brother. Thank you for the help. All right, so we just rolled this back. Let's take a look at it. As you can see, it is now just the page.tsx. Then let's do a get check out staging and a get pull. Things already up to date. You know what? Close this out. And we're back at the page.tsx home page. Let's make sure everything looks as we intended. Yep, that looks good. It's a home page. Nothing's broken there. So I think now we can create a new branch and go ahead and build and modularize this UI out. All right. So we'll get branch. So current staging. Get checkout. We're going to create a new branch B. Let's name this feature front end landing. All right. So now we have the ability to clean this baby up a little bit. So let's go ahead and bring in a few things. Let's bring in a fave icon, desktop. I think this is it. Just gonna rename this. Uh-oh. Delete delete this, rename it. There we go. All right, and we can see it is updated. I don't know if I like it that much, but it'll do for right now. Next, let's install npm react icons. This is going to be to help us with the logo. Got Daisy UI, we got React icons. Cool. So now we have a off grouping dashboard. Let's make we'll name it marketing. And we'll move the main page.tsx in there. Yes. Add. Center layouts.tsx. Yeah, I know I have a character there, but yeah, it's working. All right, so let's begin to focus on the styling of this home page. All right, let's get busy. So first we'll begin with the overall page design itself. Give this a class name, set the height to full, set the background to 500. All right, so I think we'll go with a neutral instead. Set the text to neutral. Let's make it neutral 700, 800. Yeah, I think that shows up fine. So the first section will be a header. Default function. And we can bring this into the layout. There we go. You can see that listed there.